Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Friday, November 17th, 2023. I'm your host, George Kerth, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. Cody, how you doing here? Heading into week 11.
Wondering how we got here. How's it week 11 already? I feel like we were just in July talking about, man, the season can't get here soon enough, and we are flying by. And I kind of just needed to slow down. I need the Packers to start winning, make the weeks more enjoyable, but I need the NFL season overall to slow down.
Amen. Like, we're actually getting into the home stretch of the fantasy football regular season. Like, what, 5 weeks left now,
Four,
counting week 11? 4 weeks left, counting
11,
week
12,
11.
13, 14. Yep. If you play
Yeah,
fantasy the right way. 5 if you play the wrong way.
that's true. Unless you have a 4-team playoff, then we give you the pass. You just can't play week 18. That's not how that works. But yes, it is coming along fast. And along with the season moving super fast, we have Thanksgiving next week. So a little scheduling reminder. We will be posting our weekly episode of the Couch GMs podcast before the Thanksgiving games. So make sure you go check us out earlier in the week next week. I'm sure Cody's also going to be posting his World Cup recap beginning
Bro,
of next week. He normally does
read
that.
the rundown. Monster episode next week, dropping Wednesday, TBD on morning or evening. Couch GMs World Cup recap and Week 12 preview, one show.
Man,
Buckle
this
up.
is putting more work on my plate, and I don't even know. I see. This is why I have to read the rundown before we start. So, thank you, Cody, for clarifying. But yes, I like it. I haven't been on with you to talk about Couch Jams World Cup in a few weeks. I gotta talk about my current second place position in Group C and how I'm gonna make the playoffs and beat everybody and get a lock in year one. But anyway, no more of that next week in our monster episode.
Yeah, for me, Couch GMs World Cup, if you haven't checked out the episode this week, back-to-back losses by less than 2 points. And now out of a bye spot. So that's how my week in the Couch GMs World Cup has gone.
We got ups and downs on this podcast, but make sure you follow us at the Couch GMs on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and you can find even more about that and other fantasy football advice. As always, you can send us a DM with your fantasy or football questions as well, and we'll answer them as quick as we can. Unlike last week, we have a little bit of news. Cody, let's sit back, relax, and chat. Bills had a heck of a game on primetime last week, and there has been some fallout from it as the Bills fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. I don't know what is up with the Bills and specifically Josh Allen. Like, we always know he's called a gunslinger. He has all the turnovers, but like their offense has been so turnover plagued this year. They just can't get going. And I think Ken Dorsey, whether he was the problem or not, he's just the person that's in the fallout. Do you think this was a good move?
I mean, we talk about this when coaches are fired on bad teams and interim coaches come in, like there's always like a spark for a win or two for the interim head coaches. They come in. We've seen it with the Raiders over the last 2 weeks. Um, yeah, it didn't feel like the offense was completely like they were not performing like they had used to. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think part of that is they haven't found the guy that's replaced Brian Daboll, that he got the head coach in the Giants. They thought maybe Ken Dorsey could do it. It doesn't appear that way. You mentioned the turnovers are really bad. Josh Allen leads the league in interceptions this year. Heck, even when they try to turn over the ball, sometimes on a fumble, it bounces right back up to them and they get 30 more yards. Like they're just putting the ball on the ground and hoping it comes back to them at this point. I know Josh Allen took a lot of the blame for the Ken Dorsey getting fired, but I do like his replacement, Joe Brady. If that name might sound familiar if you're a college football guy. He was the offensive coordinator for the high-powered LSU offense with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, uh, Justin Jefferson, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire the year they won the championship. And then he got a offensive coordinator job in the NFL. I was surprised it wasn't with the Cincinnati Bengals after Joe Burrow got there, but it was not. And then he kind of got similar situation as Ken Dorsey did, a little bit of like the scapegoat. Some things are going wrong, but we're not a terrible team, so let's fire the coordinator, see if we can shake things up. So Joe Brady will be the guy replacing it, and I think he is a pretty good offense coordinator. So I think it'll be a good thing. But really, it comes down to Josh Allen. And I know I texted in our group chat with you, Tyler, and our friend Kempy, like, is Madden curse back? Like, is Patrick Mahomes just that good that he got rid of the Madden curse and now it's back with since Josh Allen was on it this year?
If it only went away for 1 year, was it ever ever actually gone, or did it just, like you said, was it just Patrick Mahomes being that good? Was it just, was it on a bye? I don't know. But anyway, like Madden curse or not, the Bills have always been the team that has been very high variance. Like they'll go out there and lose to a team they had no business losing to because of turnovers, because they always say what they called it Josh Allen playing hero ball. I mean, we've heard that 1.5 million times. And I think while I don't want to completely blame it on Josh Allen, you need a presence in there at offensive coordinator that's going to be able to pull him back in. Not only, not really make him go out there and just throw short passes and play safe offense, but like, no, inform him when to take the shots. Call enough shots that like he's not going to go out there and try to call an audible or force a ball where he shouldn't be. But like somebody that's going to find that balance of letting Josh Allen be Josh Allen while still making him protect the ball.
Yeah, and Josh Allen is never going to be the guy that, is super efficient, without turning the ball over. He's that gunslinger mentality. He is the quarterback like Brett Favre on the field that, you just lived with the interceptions because he made enough wow plays and he does enough with his legs that you're like, okay, we can live with these turnovers. The 2 points I want to add to what you said though is one, they need to start running the ball more. Like James Cook is a decent running back. Like they go away from that way too early.
They also got
Even if
playoff Lenny in house now, so they got to
they
start warming that up for the playoffs.
that and the skill positions around him. I mean, Dalton Kincaid has been coming on a little bit as of late, but Gabe Davis has never taken that step that we had thought. Still a nice rotational player, but not a true number two that people were hoping for after that 4 touchdown game in Kansas City. Khalil Shakur, same thing, a nice rotational piece, but they really need a guy opposite of Stephon Diggs, or and maybe eventually that becomes Dalton Kincaid, but he's still the rookie tight end. So they need a second piece there because Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen can't do it all. And I think we often forget, like when we see elite players, an elite quarterback and elite wide receiver, like we forget about the pieces around them. It oftentimes takes multiple high level players around them to make a difference. Like look at Philadelphia, look at Miami, look at San Francisco, look at Kansas City or Cincinnati when healthy. They all have at least two.
Kansas City's the one that doesn't, I was going to say, but yeah, you're right with the rest of them.
But when I look at Kansas City, like last year they made it work, but their offense has definitely taken a step back now that they're trying to fully rely on Travis Kelce. So there's a lot of things there. And then did you see that the Bills, the game against the Broncos was exactly 1 year uh, from their loss against the Vikings last year, and that miracle, that weird comeback. So like that day is not good for them. So good thing it's on a Tuesday in 20, maybe a Wednesday with the leap year. Don't have a calendar.
Well, even then it should be safe for them for a while, unless they have a Thursday game on it in 2 years or whatever the math works out to. But um, we got a little bit more news. Now I wanted to talk about this one in the scope of how it went down too, because Deshaun Watson is out for the year, needing surgery on his shoulder after going out and beating the Baltimore Ravens with a broken shoulder. Like what?
Yeah, so this one is definitely weird, and I feel like it was like the most unannounced trade, or not trade, what like
Injury?
big news.
Yeah.
Like I just happened to be scrolling Twitter and I saw like uh Deshaun Watson out for the year, and it was like not even by like in a real account. Like I say a real account, like one of like the top insider accounts. When I saw it was like,
Mhm. It was like
sorry,
one of those accounts that like put out that we thought Belichick was getting fired 2 weeks ago, like that one.
right, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, is this legit? And it was. And then there was some reporting again. I don't remember if this was one of the insider, but like he wanted to play. He just wanted to take injections
Mhm.
basically and play through it, kind of like he did. But I guess they did some more testing after the week, and they said that it, depending on how many more hits the shoulder took, it could completely fall apart. So like the team was forcing him to, again. I can't remember who I read that from, so take what I just said with a grain of salt. But that was at least something I saw on X, and everything you believe on the internet or you see on the internet is 100% true.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so they have to shut him down, and then Dorian Thompson Robinson will be getting the start, which I also thought was interesting, not going with PJ Walker, who got the victory over the 49ers at least.
Okay. On to the quarterback. Okay, current quarterback situation first. So PJ Walker, I love PJ Walker personally. I don't really know why, but he's just someone like you like to rally around. I don't understand how he has such a good record. He is like 1 to 2 in touchdowns to interceptions in his career. And the dude just wins games. And it's like, how do you do this when you can't score touchdowns, take care of the ball? Like, I don't know. Anyway, but like teams rally around him. That's probably part of it. Like that's why Nick Foles won the Eagles a Super Bowl, for example. It doesn't really make sense. But I think it is interesting that they're going to Dorian Thompson-Robinson because they're in a playoff chase. Like this is a team that you might not have expected to be in the running if you heard the Steelers were having a good year. The Ravens are having a great year. The Bengals started slow, but they're putting it together now. And we'll see how the Bengals-Ravens game goes, probably while this is being posted. We don't know that as we're recording. We record right before Thursday Night Football. But that division is probably the best in the league right now, top to bottom. And
Depends
that's
how you
with the
feel about the
Browns.
Steelers.
It depends. Well, yeah, the Steelers are probably the fakest team in the league. But this goes back to their 11-0 year when they were the fakest 11-0 team in the history of NFL. They're still fake. But anyway, the Browns have done this without a quarterback. Like their defense ranks first and second in almost every important defensive statistical category. And that's probably why they have been able to carry a quarterback like that. And I think that they're just trying to get a rookie in there that they can establish even as a backup quarterback because they're still tied to Deshaun Watson for years, regardless of how it goes. Just because they offered him all that guaranteed money 2 seasons ago, there's a good chance he's not out of there at least for another season or two, even if they try to pull the trade plug. But they're trying to find somebody that can be their established number 2 because they realize that Deshaun Watson has some injury risk right now.
Definitely, and I'm looking something up real quick because I don't want to say unless it was a reliable source, but because I've just been talking about stuff I read on X, I might just say it
Might
anyways.
as well. Keep it
But
up.
I saw that Jeff Simon of ESPN, at least according to what X says, because they got rid of the check marks, it's hard to tell who people actually are.
Yep.
Put out on Twitter today that Ryan Tannehill did request to be released from the Titans. Now I know in the media he said everything right, like I want to be a good teammate, want to be a. So I will see if anything comes to fruition there. But if he does get released, look for Cleveland to be a team that might pick up. Tannehill is past his prime, but he could be that solid option with a defense like that, a solid running game. We've seen what he's done with good defense, a solid run team. So Tannehill could be on his way to Cleveland if the Titans are willing to release him, or maybe that is just a made up account that looks really real.
Well, you have to go to the bio and it'll tell you if it's a parody account or not. That's the rule according to X. That's what I've heard at least. I don't know. But I don't ever put that kind of work in. We've been talking a lot about news. I think we have a lot of games to cover, Cody. You ready to jump into week 11?
Oh, sorry. Yep, I am. Give me 3 seconds. 2,
3,
1.
2, 1. And I tried my best to give you a little bit of time there. But all right, week 11 in the NFL, we got 4 teams on bye. The Atlanta Falcons, the Indianapolis Colts, the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints. Given some of the powerhouse teams that we have had on bye the last few weeks, this really feels like a break. I mean, we're missing Bijan Robinson, who finally scored a touchdown, by the way.
We're missing running backs.
Yeah, we're missing Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, Ramondre Stevenson, Alvin Kamara. It is a lot of running backs. You're right. So we're going to have to see how we can dig out some of these running backs that might be backups, but have some opportunities. But at the wide receiver position, you're only missing a couple of guys. Olave,
Pittman.
Michael Pittman,
That's the
and
end of the
that's about
list.
it. Yeah, that's really it. People at least that I would start. I mean, there's some guys you might have rostered, but here we are. Starting it off with maybe one of those backfields you can exploit if you're running back needy, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Now, I did say the Cleveland Browns have a very good defense, and that's very true. But Jalen Warren is still somebody I'm keeping my eye on because he's still nipping at the heels of Najee Harris. Although Harris has been a little bit better lately.
Yeah, I'm not playing either of them this week. No
Yeah,
way.
Cody doesn't play running backs. I think we're slowly starting to get back to that. He shifted because if you heard us talking earlier in the year on a league of record, Mister I draft 8 wide receivers and 2 running backs, drafted about 700,000 running backs and no wide receivers. So I think he was trying to play towards liking the running back position, and he has quickly learned that he still does not.
No, that is true. I am still not a huge fan of the running back position, but Steelers got to play the Packers last week, who give up a boatload of yards. They've given up over 200 rushing yards in 3 games already this season. So that's why Najee Harris looked good. Jalen Warren looked good. They both got in the end zone. They both had 20, almost 100 yards apiece. Like, this is the Cleveland Browns, and this is going to be a gritty. They used to call the AFC North or in the NFC North, like both the North divisions, because they're from the Midwest. It's cold. Most of the team, well, all the team in the AFC North is outdoors. Black and blue, hard hitting. Like these teams, and this game could easily be like 10-9, like low scoring. Like the over under set at 33. Steelers are 1-point underdogs, but it's going to be a gritty game. And I don't like the Steelers. There really isn't anybody on the Steelers that I like playing in this matchup, even at the wide receiver position. Now, I know Deontay Johnson had a rough week last week after he's been the quote unquote #1 target. So if I had to play
Mhm.
one, it would be him. But I'm trying to avoid all my Steelers this week. And maybe it's because I'm just tired of them winning. They've been outgained in total yards by every one of their opponents, and they're sitting at 6-3. If they flip every 1-score game, they're 0-9. Like,
Absolutely fake news.
I just
They're such fake news.
shout out to Zach, or not Zach, Mike Tomlin for I don't even know where Zach came from.
Who is
Mike
Zach
Tom,
Tomlin?
I have no idea. I'll Facebook him later and add him as a friend.
Okay, cool.
But he's a good coach. On the Brown side, though, I think you can play the running backs, both of them, Ford and Hunt. The Steelers' defense is good at making, getting stops, turnovers, sacks, and stuff like that, but they give up yardage. And I think the running backs can be. I don't know if I would, George isn't going to like talk me into Amari Cooper. I know that from podcasting with him the last 3 years.
Never.
Uh,
Never.
so I don't really know if there's a pass catcher worth starting, especially with the rook.
David Njoku is a shot, but I don't think tight ends count as pass catchers in our definition of tight end.
Speaking of tight ends, though, Pat Frymuth is expected to be activated off IR and could be back this week. Still not playing him because I'm not playing any of the
No,
Steelers. But that,
keep him on the bench though. Yeah,
yeah,
I
or
mean,
maybe pick him
activate
up.
him and keep him.
Or if you don't have an IR league, or maybe someone wasn't willing to spend their IR spot on Pat Frymuth, maybe you can pick him up right now and get him for the coming weeks.
100%. I think we can stop talking about that matchup where we're just trying to cherry pick players, and we can go to a matchup where we should have a lot more points scored. Over under 48 for the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. Bears running backs are another place we can look at with Khalil Herbert going from limited to full participant in practice. He could be activated off of IR this week. We're keeping an eye on Dante Foreman, who was a limited participant in practice on Thursday. But chance you could play both, or are you trying to sit back on Herbert?
This Lions defense, while it will give up points to the running back, if Herbert's in there, I wouldn't play Foreman.
You think they would go fully back to Herbert after how well Foreman's been doing? I mean, that's a possibility. We really don't know. I was just asking.
Bro, how many times have we seen Deontay Foreman ball out and then the starter comes back and he's just relegated back to the bench like he has been playing good?
You're not wrong every single time. It's so frustrating because he if he's done this well on so many different teams, who can convince me that he's not good anymore?
Dude. And people forget this man popped his Achilles like his second year in the league.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because people forget he even played for Houston. Because did he ever actually play for Houston, or was he just on their roster?
He played a couple snaps, but he looked good in Carolina. He's looked good in Tennessee. He's now looked good in Chicago. With him being limited, though, Herbert most likely coming back. Justin Fields also expected to be back. He could steal some groundwork if they want to get him back rolling as well. And it's also a game that the game script's probably not going to be in their favor to run the ball. It was better last week when they got to play the Panthers and stay more in a positive game script. So if Foreman is the only guy, obviously Roshan's there, but if Herbert doesn't get active this week, I might consider Foreman. I don't like either of them if they are both going to play, though.
Okay. Lions side of the ball, they have 2 running backs now, though, apparently.
Play them both.
Play them both. I was not wrong about David Montgomery, but it wasn't quite as dramatic as I expected it to be. Because he still did lead in carries, but Gibbs was very 50-50.
But how about Gibbs getting the goal line work and Montgomery getting the 75-yard touchdown? Like, what?
It doesn't help that they scored about 700 points in that Chargers-Lions game last week, but you're right, because I was pounding the table like, they told me that they're going to use Montgomery for this. They told me they're going to use Montgomery for that. He's going to come back in and get a lot of carries, and they used them completely opposite. You're not wrong, but it still worked.
Yeah, both Lions running backs, I think, are playable this week. They're both involved enough, and I think where Jahmyr Gibbs really shines is because he is not always, but he is quickly becoming the number 2 pass catcher option in Detroit behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra's still like the guy that gets all the targets, but Jameson Williams, he gets a deep shot or two. Josh Reynolds catches a crucial third down. They'll get Brock Wright involved. But when they're scheming up plays, a lot of times the number 2 option, or they want to just get Gibbs in space. So I like both running backs, Amon-Ra, Jared Goff.
Did you just drop the tight end 2 and not Sam Laporta?
Oh, you're right. I did.
This dude says Mike Wright. It doesn't say whatever the heck his name is. I don't even care.
Because he had a nice catch on Sunday. So I wanted to give him a shout out. But yeah, Sam Laporta's there too. He's probably the number 2.
But you're not wrong. He probably is the number 2, but him and
Gibbs is right
Jahmyr
there.
Gibbs are very close. That's why we've seen the drop off from Sam Laporta, which is why we were always like, oh, Dalton Kincaid's the new Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta is yesterday's news. But he's still good. It's not like he's still an every week starter, especially with the nature of the position. But it has been a drop off because they've been getting Gibbs more involved. Jameson Williams, even though he isn't rolling, he's still taking 4 or 5 targets a game. It's just been enough to kind of knock him down a peg. Yeah.
And they also run the ball a lot because their offensive line is so good.
And they have 2 running backs that are that good too. Props to the Lions. They're using they're using their skill players the way that they should be, and they're using all of them. So props to that.
I mean, props to Ben Johnson on getting a head coaching job next year.
And props to Mike Wright, whoever you are.
All right. Cowboys, Panthers. Whew.
Okay.
Yes, I know. We got to talk about this one.
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised that it's a 10.5 point underdog for Carolina. I could have easily seen this being 15 again after the Cowboys dismantled the Giants.
Yeah, but the Cowboys also lost the Cardinals when Josh Dobbs. So Vegas.
Do you think people are still thinking that?
I mean, I know Vegas has the Formula 1 race this weekend, so maybe the sportsbooks are a little bit occupied with something else. But I think they know what they're doing. Panthers at home. Hayden Hurst is in concussion protocol. And maybe it also has something to do with Frank Reich is taking back play calling responsibilities from offense coordinator Thomas Brown. And why that's a big deal is Frank Reich started the season as the play caller, then passed it off, and he's now taking it back. Not that Adam Thielen hasn't been good the last couple weeks, but he was the guy that targets everything those first couple weeks of the season when Frank Reich was the play caller. So I know this Cowboys defense is really good. You're still playing them in fantasy. Fun fact, they're no longer the number 1 scoring defense in fantasy.
After they scored 33 straight weeks, they're not. Who?
Baltimore Ravens by 3 points.
all the sacks and the fact that they give up 14 points a game unless they play the Browns. That makes sense.
Yeah, so they're both over 100 points. I don't know where they're at in like standings compared to other skilled players and stuff like that, but still really good defense. You're playing them. But on the Panthers side, like we're talking running backs. That seems to be the topic with all the guys on bye. Like how you, I feel like Miles Sanders is a no,
No, yeah, he's a no.
but
He's getting like 2 carries a week, it seems now.
is Schubert Hubbard a yes, or is this defense too good for?
I mean, you're telling me
Is
somebody's
Tony
got to
Pollard a
score
yes?
points. I don't even want to go there yet. We'll get to that one in a second. You're telling me somebody on Carolina's got to score points. I do like Adam Thielen, the Adam Thielen rebound. I think that was a good note by you that with Frank Gregg getting back, I think it's going to kind of get back to the basics where they were. They're going to get the ball to the veteran wide receiver who's making Bryce Young feel comfortable. Chuba Hubbard, on the other hand, I'm still on board with being able to flex him, because he has been, at least semi-effective. He has the volume. This is gonna be one of those weeks where, like, even though you're talking about I don't want to play either of the Steelers running backs, at least Najee, like, you got to play volume in a week like this. If you have two of those running backs on bye, if you have an injury in a running back on bye, whatever it is, like, I'm going with Chuba because volume.
All right, now it's time to talk about Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard's junk. Um, no, I kind of think it falls into the exact same thing. And the Cowboys' offense has been very good, and it's amazing that they haven't been able to get Tony Pollard going more than they have been. But again, like, I'm hoping you're finding other options. If you don't happen to have one of these guys on by, don't force Pollard into your lineup. But don't get too cute and try to play an RB2 for another team because you feel desperate. Go out there and play Tony Pollard. It should be a positive game script again. So I'm hoping that, like, it'll turn into something a little bit better. But he is a panic button player. And if he has a great week, um I don't he has an easy schedule coming up, if I remember correctly. The Cowboys schedule eased up last week, and it kind of have a couple more weeks where they're not playing quality teams. Might be good for a running back like Pollard, but I'm still thinking I'm going to try to trade him before the fantasy trade deadline, which for some people might be while you're listening to the show. It's probably in the next week or two. Try to trade him before the deadline because his fantasy playoff schedule is when the Cowboys schedule starts to ramp back up again. And I don't want any part of trying to be forced to play Tony Pollard and hoping he scores points with how it's going right now.
Yeah, so I think you can play Tony Pollard this week. I know he's been disappointing. He is still running back 23 on the season. So he's still up there in the RB2 category. And I think this could be a big game for him against the Carolina Panthers and how bad they are. But to your point, I really like the idea of, especially if the trade deadline is right before Thanksgiving, knowing Tony Pollard plays on Thanksgiving Day because the Cowboys play the 4 o'clock window. If he has a big game against Carolina and you can flip him, you might get to see him have a big game against on Thanksgiving Day, but like George mentioned, their last 5 games is a brutal stretch, which would obviously include the fantasy playoffs.
Yes, it would. And then I guess we can move on to our next matchup. More running back talk as we have the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said LA Raiders. I don't know what the heck my mind's thinking right now. And the Miami Dolphins. And Devin Achan, Mr. running back savior to start the year. He went on injured reserve. He is expected to be activated this week and play. He's a limited participant in practice. We also see Raheem Mostert as limited participant in practice. I think he's going to be good to go. Do we have one of those windows where you can play both again?
Uh, Probably
This
this
is going to
week
be a
too,
tough one.
just because of the
Yeah.
matchup. Like I'm playing Achan. Like that's
Yeah. No,
100%.
if he's activated, he's going back in.
The question is Moser, and he's expected to be
Yeah.
activated. Achan has only played in 4 games this week, but he's averaging 24.3 fantasy points, half point PPR on the season. He's still RB24 despite not playing the last 5 weeks. So that just goes to show how many points he scored in the short amount of time. So I would definitely play him. Raheem Mostert is the question mark, but if you need a flex play or a RB2 just because of the guys that are on bye, I think you can play him in this matchup against the Raiders, especially because he is still that one of those guys that can turn 5 carries into 20 fantasy points. So not a must start for me on Mostert, but definitely think he is worth a play if you need him.
All right. Nope, never mind. I was gonna see. I guess I can. Raheem Mostert or Rashad White.
Rashad White, volume.
Got it. Okay. Raheem Mostert
Am I setting your
or
lineup?
Hollywood Brown. Yeah, you're helping me set my World Cup lineup. Thank you.
Holly, dude, we haven't got to that game yet. Who the ooh, that's a
Houston.
shootout.
Ooh, that's a shootout. He says.
I think it's the highest point over under total, which is our next game. So we can kind of just talk about that. But they're
Cardinals
48.
Texans is next. Yes. So
So
we're talking Hollywood Brown to start with compared to Raheem Mostert.
I would probably go Hollywood.
Okay.
But I'm also like you mentioned, I'm the lover of wide receiver. So
You are. And I mean, first look with Hollywood Brown along with Kyler Murray was not a good one. He had 3.3 points. It was one catch for 28 yards in half PPR. So not great, but I mean, you got to think Kyler's still going to kind of, keep picking it up. Texans, not a bad matchup. They have a very good offense this year. Like, absolutely impressed with the strides they've taken. Their defense is good, but it's not like a defense I fear to play fantasy players against. So I don't hate the idea of going out and rolling out Hollywood. Wouldn't force it. I'm very on the fence on him or Mostert. I don't know if I'm as confident, like, oh yeah, no, just play Hollywood, but
I don't
there's a
think
possibility.
I think I definitely went back and forth in my head, and that would show up on tape if you're checking us out on YouTube. If not, make sure you subscribe over there.
Make sure you do like that commercial. You'll throw the challenge flag. They'll bring out the screen. We'll watch the replay. But
Did
anyway,
you know Raheem Mostert is still the second highest scoring running back on the season? Now I'm going back.
and through his bye and everything, yeah, I'm you don't realize that, like, even though he had a couple of bad weeks in the middle, like, he still scored, what, 14 in week 9, 10 in week 8. He had the 32-pointer in week 6, 14 in week 5. Like, those big numbers, the 25, 41, 32 he scored are really inflating it. But, like, he's only had 2 bust weeks. Week 4 against Buffalo, he scored 4. Week 7 against Philly, he scored 5.6. Those
It
are his
does help.
only 2 bust weeks all year.
It does help that he has 11 touchdowns on the season, most of all running backs. But I think I just flipped myself back to Raheem Mostert over Hollywood Brown, buying a little bit too much into the shootout hype. I think they're both worth playing this week, but if I had to pick one of those two, maybe Mostert. Maybe they won't speak, and they probably won't like give Achan the full workload just quite yet. Could be wrong. I mean that team, it's so hard to tell. They're coming off a bye. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they like come out with Achan lineup at receiver, Mostert at quarterback, and do it at running back, and they run some kind of play off of that.
I could see it. That's just something.
That's
Anyway,
Mike McDaniel for
anything
you.
anything on the Raiders side
I know
that
we
we
don't
didn't
do.
mention?
Hang on. Do you?
Sorry.
I know we don't do quotes of the week anymore, but did you see? Mike McDaniel was at the podium on Wednesday, and they were asking about once the reporter was like, once Achan is back, do you expect him to have a full workload? And he said, so how much money do you have in your fantasy football league? So like, so
That's they're all thinking it. You have to know that they're all thinking it. But Mike McDaniel is totally the guy that would go out and say it. Every time I see him now, I think back to the social media video that went viral about a month ago of him walking around in shorts, bopping to music while his players are stretching. And it's like when your dad leaves you in charge of the company while he's on vacation. Like, that meme is what I think of with him every single time now.
yeah, Mike McDaniel is a fun coach. I'm glad he is a head coach, providing great sound bites each and every week. The Raiders, we didn't really talk about them, so I'll just do a quick recap. Josh Jacobs, you can still play him. Devontae Adams, I would still play him. I know it's been a little bit disappointing, but they got him more involved last week. If you're in need of a flex play because the Dolphins are going to put up points, we anticipate, and they're going to throw the ball around, I think you could play Jacoby Myers as well. Don't love the Myers one, but he seems to be the guy that's been catching the touchdowns. Completely different to his Patriots career now that he's in Las Vegas. So I think those guys are good to go. But outside of that, no other Raiders.
I like it. Now we did mention the start of Cardinals Texans, so we're gonna talk Cardinals here first. We did say Hollywood Brown could be a potential flex play. Kyler Murray going right back in your lineup now after seeing that he put up over 17 last week.
Bro, he was in my lineup last week, and I was adamant
You're
about it.
right. I was the one that was holding off. You're the one that's like go full send, and it worked out for you.
It did. I
Yeah.
definitely appreciated Kyler Murray balling out last week. Um, and I think they just were they the team that was awarded Michael Carter, who got
Yes.
released by. I don't think he's going to have a big impact. Now we've seen the Cardinals pick up guys and they have big impacts the same week, a la Kenyon Drake, if anyone remembers that week for him a couple seasons ago. But I think you can play James Conner in this matchup. I don't think Michael Carter news affects that at all. And then on the Texans side, CJ Stroud definitely in your lineup. The dude's been balling out. I've seen some CJ Stroud for MVP conversation starting.
Yeah.
And honestly, the numbers he's putting up as a rookie and what he's done for that Houston team, uh, Kempe brought it to our attention at the beginning of the week that D'Amico Ryans is now 4th all time in wins in the Houston Texans franchise at 5. So
At
take
5.
take that information with what you want. But I like Stroud. Tank Dell can play. Dalton Schultz if he's healthy. Worth noting, he did go limited to full participant, but that's back injury, and back injuries are the ones you have to monitor because he could wake up on Sunday after being full participant Thursday and Friday. Not saying I don't know what it'll be Friday. We're recording this on Thursday, and it could just be like not good to go. Back injuries are like super freaky like that. So you have to keep an eye on him in your lineups. But I think you can play him, and then probably even Nico Collins is worth a start as well on this matchup. So a lot of Texans I like. I'm definitely on board the CJ. Well, I've been the captain of the CJ Stroud QB1 in this draft class uh, since January of this year, and I'm on the hype that he is putting out in the NFL right now.
All my guy Bryce Young has done is lift Adam Thielen to greatness again, but I'll take what I can get. Congratulations on your CJ Stroud correctness, and he's at least locking up offensive rookie of the year, if nothing else. Like that is his award right now. But he is in MVP conversation right now. I think you wrapped up the play everybody game. We can move on to the best game of the 1 o'clock window. Not at all. The New
We have
York
60 seconds for
Giants.
this one.
New York
That's all
Giants, Washington
I can get.
Commanders. I'll try to knock it out really quick here. The fact that the Commanders are favored by 8.5 should tell you everything you need to know. Danny DeVito still playing at quarterback. I know I don't even remember his first name. I can call him Danny DeVito too much.
Tommy.
He is a full participant. Thank you, Tommy. Matt Barkley is their backup if he should not be able to go, but he is a full participant on Thursday with a shoulder. The only person you're playing on the Giants is Saquon anyway, and keep an eye on him. He's a limited participant, but he should be fine. Commander side of the ball, I really like the running backs right now. Gibson did not practice with a toe injury on Wednesday, though, so keep an eye on that. If he doesn't go, Brian Robinson definitely a lock in your lineup. Play Terry McLaurin. You can even play Jahan Dotson. I'm not sure if I like Sam Howell a ton this week because I feel like they might get so far ahead that he might not have to throw the ball that much, but it's a divisional game, so you don't really know. How do I do in time?
Good. I was going to say it's worth you could play Sam Howell. I think you can play him. He's not like I think we're kind of in the same page. We're just saying it different. Bottom tier must start. He's not a must start. He's not one of those like 10 guys you have to start. But if you're looking for a streamer, positive matchup, he's
Yeah.
been doing really
Yeah.
well the last couple weeks, putting up yards. Should continue.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. We got next game in the 1 o'clock window is the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars hosting this one in divisional game. Trevor Lawrence, what is the question marks for? I'm sorry.
So
What did I miss?
the question marks are he's not listed on the injury report. But if I go to NFL.com and I click on news, there's an article that says Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson concedes offenses limited somewhat by Trevor Lawrence's health. And they scroll down, you talk about a knee injury, but he's not listed on the injury report. So
Is this going to be another Bijan Robinson investigation into injury report by the NFL because he got the flu and they didn't? So like he's got a knee injury. You have to at least list him as Is that how that should work?
So I would think they would have to list him unless like the article is referencing like the knee injury he had a couple weeks ago and like he's gotten over that, but because of the injury, they don't want him on the move as much, kind of. But I still think it's interesting whether that's the case or not, that there's an article coming out today about his health and he's not on the injury report. All that to say is the Jaguars played so bad against 49ers, which George was very adamant was going to happen, and he was right
Called it.
last week on that one. And it's a divisional game. These games are always close. Both teams like don't if now this article makes me go, well, what's really going on with Trevor Lawrence? Like I would if I'm betting spread like games, like I'd probably take Tennessee plus points in this matchup.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go back and see if I can find, because it seems like it might be a similar situation to what Jalen Hurts is going on with in Philly, and I'm trying to see if they were ever listing him on the injury report, because they kept saying like he wasn't missing practice, but he had the knee bruise, and it kept getting aggravated after. I want to say it was a game before the Cowboys game, week 8, and then it aggravated again in the Cowboys game, week 9. He's not on the Eagles injury report right now, so maybe it's because if Lawrence isn't missing any practice snaps, they still don't have to list him, even if he is injured.
And
That must be it.
he was on the injury report up until week 10. So last week was the first week he came off the injury report. So it could very much be a similar situation to Jalen Hurts. So thank you for pointing that out. But other than that, play Travis Etienne, RB3 on the season.
Play Travis Etienne, and hope Calvin Ridley finds some kind of consistency.
Should be. This Titans pass defense is pretty bad. But
so you said you're taking Titans plus points. Is it just Derrick Henry?
Yeah. Well, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins. Like I'd play Hopkins still this week.
All right, then we're back to DeAndre Hopkins or Raheem Mostert, because that's another guy I got in that league to look at.
I'd probably play Mostert.
Okay,
I just think it's going to be a low scoring game. Like I think the Titans, I think the Jaguars will still win, but if you tell me the score is, 21-17, 20-14 type of game, those are all where the Titans plus the points still cover.
That's true. Okay, I get that. And it's divisional. 7 points is a pretty big stretch for that. Okay. I think I'm good with that. We can move on to last game in the 1:00 window. West Coast team kind of traveling east.
Not fully.
Playing at an East Coast time, but not traveling east.
Dude, they all play at an East Coast time. It's 10 a.m. on the West Coast when they play at 1:00 here.
I know.
It's a noon kickoff.
It's a body clock thing more than it is an actual travel thing. Is that not how this is supposed to work? Is it supposed to be a travel thing too?
Yeah, it's travel related, but it's only 2 hours, so it's not as important.
But they're still playing at 10 a.m. in their body clock time.
Right.
Which I thought was the more important thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy.
Probably.
I don't know what the heck. Okay.
All right.
You handle this. You're the expert. Go ahead.
But no, I got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
2 questions. Are the Chargers good enough to have a trap game?
3 weeks ago, I said, hell no. Now, maybe.
Are the Packers bad enough to be a trap team?
Right now, yeah.
Okay. That's what I think too. So the Chargers just came off that game against the Lions, big game.
Yeah.
They have to go to Green Bay, and then they're playing the Ravens next week. So I'm just saying the Packers might get a victory out of a trap game. Packers wearing the throwback jerseys. None of that has anything to do with fantasy football, but I had to throw that out there. And that's the point of my season. I'm hoping to be bad enough to be a trap team so we can get a victory. That's where I'm at this season with the Green Bay Packers.
Man, I'm sorry.
3-point underdogs at home. Aaron Jones is limited. Christian Watson has limited. They've been limited the last couple of weeks. Jones, definitely you can still play him. Christian Watson, probably not. He just hasn't been consistent enough. Or if he gets a big touchdown on your bench, you live another week. Like, I wouldn't play Christian Watson at all this week. I still love Christian, even though a lot of Packers fans are turning on him very quickly. But I still love him as a player, not in fantasy lineups. On the Chargers side, Allen went from DNP to limited. He's expected to play. Definitely play him. It is worth noting, not in terms of fantasy, but Jair Alexander missed last week's game. Did not practice Wednesday. Moved to limited on Thursday. Would be a big addition for the Packers defense and covering Keenan Allen. Gerald Everett, DNP. Donald Parham, DNP to limited. So both tight ends are a little bit banged up right now. So Keenan Allen's in your lineup. Justin Herbert's a no-brainer. And then Austin Eckler might break a record for most fantasy points this week. Like, that's how bad the Packers run defense has been. And they just like to give up yards and play light boxes in the red zone and do all kinds of things. So Austin Eckler, like, pay the money for him in DFS this week. Like, I don't even care. Like, must start, what you were going to do anyways.
Must start in redraft, but you wish he's going to break a record. You know they're going to give all the carries that mean something to Joshua Kelly just to piss us off.
Dude, play Joshua Kelly. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going that far. But
no. DFS Joshua Kelly? Yeah, sure. I could see that. Now don't play him. No. I was kind of like, I don't know about this trap game thing until you look at the fact that like the Chargers are on the upswing. They've looked pretty good. And the Packers just not having it this year. And they're only 3-point underdogs. Only 3? Like, I think Vegas is also sniffing trap game when looking at that line.
Could be. Could be.
I think you covered the fantasy aspect of that game pretty well. We got 3 games in the 4 o'clock window, and I guess they're not too bad this week, actually. First game is the biggest spread. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling out west to the San Francisco 49ers. Tampa Bay underdogs by 12. Mike Evans is a full participant in practice on Thursday, though, so he should be good to go. He's been pretty solid. He can go in your lineups. Same with Godwin. Same with White. Cody's thinking, am I messing up here?
No, I was counting in my head something else.
Oh, okay, good.
I was
You had me
listening, though,
questioning myself here.
I always get amazed by why we only have 4 o'clock window games. So I was like, did I miss a team? So I was counting the teams to make sure I didn't miss a team on the rundown. Because, like, why can't, like, I get some of it is because teams are playing. There's 3 games on Thursday night, so they're trying to get all those games in the 1 o'clock window so they have the most recovery time. But, like, could we, like, not have someone else play in the 4 o'clock window?
Well, it's a lot of it is they only put teams in the 4 o'clock window if like they're a West Coast team and they don't want them to have to play a game at 10 a.m. their time, a home game at 10 a.m. their time. It should be, or they put their game of the week there, which I'm assuming this week would be Jets Bills with how it fell together. But that's the next game, because they're 2 East Coast teams.
No, hey, Raiders, Dolphins at 4 o'clock could have worked. I know the Dolphins play on Friday, but still, they could have just spread
That
it
would
out a
have
little
flex situation though. I don't know. You're right. Especially when we have the light 4 o'clock windows. It's like, yeah, why are we watching freaking Vikings Broncos or some shit
like
like
Red
that?
Zone's going to turn off, like,
yeah,
after like 1 game's over.
pretty much. But anyway, 49ers. I think it's everybody in this game. I mean, Tampa Bay has been pretty solid against the pass and not so good against the run. But I don't think the 49ers. Oh, I'm backwards.
They're good against the run.
See, I'm off. They're good against the run. They're not good against the pass. But I mean,
He's
that's
off
even
because of
better
his new
for my
background.
point. Yes, I'm off because of my new background. It has been a hectic week, but I've been trying to put it together for y'all and still give you all the knowledge I've at least come up with. But that makes it even better for my point because you're not going to sit Christian McCaffrey. The dude just scores touchdowns and fantasy points everywhere. So play all the 49ers pass catchers and play Christian McCaffrey and just sit back and watch your fantasy score go up.
Yeah, and you're not going to feel great about it because they're 49ers defense, but you'll still play Mike Evans. You'll still play Rachaad White because of volume, like we talked about a little bit ago. The question is then, Chris Godwin, is he worth a flex play as the number 2 in a bad matchup? Let me see what your other options are. I'm gonna say he's not a must for me, at least.
He's not a must for me, but I actually feel like even though it's a bad matchup, game script helps him.
It could.
Just because volume. I mean, we don't talk about volume quite as much with wide receivers, but if Baker Mayfield's going to have to go out there and throw 40 times because they're down the whole game, positive for Chris Godwin.
All right. Want to go to the rematch of week 1?
I do. And
I guess they both are.
still
So
a different quarterback.
I really teed
Yeah,
you up
actually,
there.
you're right. Both. Yeah, I don't know. We still don't have Aaron Rodgers back, but he's still lingering out there for a mid-December return, apparently. But we don't have to talk more conspiracy theory this episode. We got the Zach Wilson Jets
Speaking
traveling
of
to Buffalo this time.
Aaron Rodgers, I
Uh-oh.
do think it is incredibly, I don't know what the right word is, interesting, we'll say, how basically Robert Saleh was like, Aaron says he wants to play and he's cleared, he's good, he can do what he wants. It's like the amount of control Aaron Rodgers has on the Jets organization is like, which you can kind of understand the caliber player he is, like why he gets a lot of say. But like he's like, yeah, he wants to come back. And I love that like it's always, oh, I'm looking for the mid December, and everybody runs with that. And then he goes on like Pat McAfee later in the week and goes, well, that's not exactly what I said. It's like, I would like to, but like we have to be in it and I have to be cleared. And it's like,
Well, yeah, because if the Jets are eliminated
look,
from playoff contention, what's the point of him risking popping his Achilles again for a meaningless final 2 weeks of the season?
right. And I will say, even as a big Aaron Rodgers supporter fan, uh, he has always been elite at getting the media to talk about him.
100%. I remember the story in the summer where he was burning steak in his backyard, and the media is like,
With
Aaron
Chris Pratt.
Rodgers with Chris Pratt. It's like, Aaron Rodgers having a party with Chris Pratt, doesn't know how to cook steaks on the grill. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah. And he's doing a fantastic job this year. And I hope he does come back. I would like to see him play again this week. And I hope he comes back next year because I think the NFL is better with Aaron Rodgers. But let's talk about what's actually going to happen on Sunday as the Jets play the Bills. The Bills are struggling, but they have a new offensive coordinator. The Jets are struggling, and they still have Zach Wilson. So let's start with the Jets because I feel like that's the easier side. It's still Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Like
Is that
none of them
Garrett
are
Wilson, that limited participant, or Zach?
Garrett. Garrett Wilson
Okay,
limited.
thank you.
He banged
Puts
up his elbow.
Wilson LP on our rundown. I'm like, who the heck Wilson?
There's normally other people on the report, but we don't include non-fantasy relevant players.
Quarterbacks are important for people around him, even if they stink. Sorry,
Would you
Zach
feel
Wilson.
any better about Garrett Wilson if it was Tim Boyle versus Zach Wilson? No,
No, you're right. You're not wrong. You're not
feel
wrong.
Exactly the same. So that's why.
Ouch.
No offense. Hey, Zach Wilson had a really nice throw at the end of the game against.
I can go out there and have a really nice throw too, and I would be like 1 for 150, and you'd be like, "Hey, I had that really nice throw though."
And Garrett Wilson should have caught the touchdown, but Tyler Conklin played defense instead of sticking his one hand up there and blocking it away from Garrett Wilson. But he did bang his
Are you
elbow.
also talking about a throw that he didn't even complete? It was a Hail Mary.
No, I was talking about the no look throw he threw earlier in the game.
Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Exactly. But Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall in your lineup. Buffalo,
Yep.
Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid. What's the star wide receiver? Stephon Diggs. His brother did say he needs to get out of there, which I thought was interesting. Throwing more fuel on the fire that Stephon Diggs isn't happy with the situation there in Buffalo. And then in this, I think you can still play James Cook. Like, he hasn't been elite like some people had hoped, but he still is the quote unquote dominant back of the poorly used backfield of the Buffalo Bills. So maybe not this week against the Jets defense. It's a good, but he's like borderline flex bench. Well, depending on what your lineup looks like for me.
Just a quick, hopefully only quick 30-second tangent. So the Jets had a players only meeting this week that then resulted in Michael Carter getting cut. And we did mention earlier, Michael Carter was claimed off of waivers to the Arizona Cardinals. Number one, what the heck happened, do you think? And number two, do you think players only meetings actually could help boost the Jets to have a better game, especially in divisional matchup?
I don't know what it could have happened other than he's like, why am I not playing over Dalvin Cook? and that like
That I mean, and that's a very fair statement too, because like Michael Carter just kind of got tossed to the side multiple times.
for sure. But yeah, we'll see how that works. I mean, the Jets stunned the Bills in week 1 with Aaron Rodgers going down. Can they do it again in Buffalo? Buffalo's reeling. Crucial matchup here, especially for all the Jets fans that want Aaron Rodgers back. They drop another L, get further behind in the division, is stacked. We haven't talked about this, but like, we see this a lot in fantasy football, how there's like 1 or 2 teams at the top, and then like 2 through 10 or 2 through 8, depending if you're in 10, 12, are like a game apart in the last couple of weeks of the fantasy football season. It gets wild. And that's what we're seeing in the AFC. Like, there's so many teams between 6-3 and, 5-4, 5-5, depending on if they've had their bye and stuff like that. Like, it's going to be hard for the Jets to make the playoffs. And this is a big win for all those people that want 12 or 8 to come back, depending on how you view him.
He has an 8 on his chest now, but I get you because his nickname was always 12. One more game in the 4 o'clock window, another divisional matchup with the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. Rams 1-point underdogs against the Seahawks, probably helped a little bit by the home. Puka Nacua was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday. I do think him and Kupp can both go back in your lineup, seeing as Matt Stafford should be good to go in this one. But it hasn't been quite as smooth sailing the last couple of weeks with the in and out injury situation with Stafford and all. Hoping they can get it back together here. Seattle LOL, says the rundown. Cody?
Yeah, they didn't even have their Wednesday out when I was putting it together. So,
That's not shocking at all.
but here I
If I
found
don't
it.
know if you're a Seahawks fan that tries to look it up, or if you're anyone like Seattle's injury reports are absolutely the worst.
So, Rams on Thursday, Puka Nacua went to full. Matthew Stafford was a fool.
Mhm.
Seattle, Tyler Lockett did not participate with a hamstring injury. So that's one to monitor there. And just looking at the Wednesday report to compare, Tyler Lockett did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. And then from the Rams side, it was a full participant for Matt Stafford both days. Nacua limited to full. So looking like I'm with you. Nacua, Kupp, both be in your lineups this week.
Cool. You can also probably roll Darrell Henderson still. It's not quite as good though.
Is this the week Kyron Williams can come back? Or is that
No, I
next
believe
week?
that's next week.
It's after week 11. I
So
couldn't remember if it was week 11
yeah,
or after week 11.
after week 11. And then Seahawks side of the ball, if there is no Tyler Lockett, I think you can throw a stab at Jackson Smith and Jigba. Wouldn't force that one in your lineup. I like it a lot in DFS though. And hopefully DK Metcalf picks up some of that slack as well. There's an interesting, I haven't looked too much into this, and this is me being so busy, so I apologize to guys out there. I don't know if you've heard this, Cody. Zach Charbonnet has been out snapping Ken Walker the last 3 weeks.
Well, Walker was a little bit banged up, and Charbonnet's done nothing with the touches. So,
Yeah, I don't think it's like a long-term concern because of that. And Ken Walker did have a bounce back last week, but something to keep an eye on in case they do keep doing that. But I think it has something to do with the injury.
Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to look at it. So Ken Walker is currently RB6 on the season. Trying to find Zach. Hang on, I have to scroll down pretty far.
Yeah, Zach Charbonnet is pretty far down. And I mean,
57.
Ken Walker is still RB6 on the season when in week 9, I believe he scored 5 half PPR points, and in week 10, he scored 2. He did bounce back with 19 in week 10, 2 in week 9, 5 in week 8. I'm all kinds of messed up, but you get my point. Like, even with those 2 duds recently, he's still a top 6 running back.
Yeah. So Ken Walker, you can play. I wouldn't play Charbonnet, even if he's getting more snaps of late.
Cool. Just making sure we don't have anyone overreacting over there. 2 more games left, Cody. You got this. We got Thursday. We're going back to being Thursday. Sunday night football between the Minnesota Vikings and Josh Dobbs, the hero, and the surging Denver Broncos. Looking like they finally are starting to figure it out there in Denver. I mean, I say go out and add Russell Wilson this week. He's somebody who could get put into your lineup if you're missing a quarterback or such.
Play the other
Jerry
guy.
Jeudy. Do what? Like Kirk Cousins? Is that what you're saying?
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Jobs, the same thing. Yeah, you're right.
I'd play Josh Dobbs over Russell Wilson is what I'm saying.
You see, I just can't get on the Josh Dobbs train because I keep, having it's Josh Dobbs. But you're right. He's like quarterback 10 right now on the season. And I'm sure that's what you're about to try to look up. So I'll
8.
just try to beat
He's ahead of Patrick
you on it.
Mahomes.
He's 8 now because he did have a good week last week. Did he have
He's
his
ahead of
I guess he didn't have a bye yet because he got traded
Yeah, Minnesota has their bye week 13.
ahead of Mahomes. That's so crazy.
They have so he's
Okay.
gonna be the guy right before the fantasy playoffs when Justin Jefferson just gets back if he comes back. But
If they keep surging, he's gonna get back because they're gonna try to make a push here. I think they're currently a playoff team right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're currently the 7th seed in the NFC.
I believe that is correct. But how different is this game this week than it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Like 3 weeks ago,
I
we're
mean,
like, NFL, please flex this game. And now this might be the most enticing matchup of the week. That is not true.
enticing, yes.
On
It's not
Sunday.
the best matchup.
It
No,
might
but
be on
even
Sunday.
it might, yeah. But it's true because the Vikings and the Broncos both did take a positive turn. The NFL made a good call by not flexing this one out because then you would have had this one in the 4 o'clock window and you would have been like, this is actually a really solid game. But anyway, like I said, the Broncos are just figuring it out finally. I don't know if it's Sean Payton finally getting his fingers on the offense and being able to put his magic into it, or if it's just something with Russell Wilson. He's not stretching in the plane on the way to his game anymore, and he's figuring it out otherwise. I don't really know. I'm just grasping at straws, but
I think the big thing for the Broncos is not so much the offensive side. It's the fact that the defense has got back to more of the defense we saw last year. Like
it's true because they had the historically bad giving up 70 to Miami, and then they've been lights out since.
basically, yeah, they've been really good since Patrick Surtain is getting back on track, being the lockdown corner, which scares me for Jordan Addison if Justin Jefferson doesn't go, because he's been taking guys away. So keep that in mind. If Justin Jefferson is back, uh, you're going to play Justin Jefferson. Like, there's no way you don't play Justin Jefferson fantasy football, but just keep that in mind. If he's not, maybe not force Jordan Addison in there because it is Patrick Surtain, and he's one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the league, in my opinion. I think it gets very interested at the running back position for both these teams. I know Madison is DNP to limited, but he's in concussion protocol, and those are always tough to tell if he's going to be back. But knowing he already went to limited on Thursday, you start to feel good about his chances.
Mm-hmm.
And with him being the top guy there, I think you can play him, especially in a week where you need running backs. It's not like a must. Again, not forcing him, but we talked about some teams I wouldn't play running backs for, and all the teams on bye. They can play him. But Javonte Williams on the other side, I think he's definitely must play in this defense or in this game as well. And don't sleep on the Vikings defense. Like, Brian Flores has gotten this defense going. Like, they are not the most talented, but they're playing really well of late too. So the defenses, I think, are playing a bigger factor into these two teams turning it around, keeping them more in games, adding some, being able to stay alive and not be out of it by halftime.
100%. And sometimes it's even just like energy feeding off of both sides of the ball, or just like an offense not feeling deflated when they can't carry a team, or anything like that could help. But I like what you said about Madison. I'm keeping an eye on Ty Chandler, who I did tell people to go out and add in fantasy this week. If Madison doesn't go, he's a play. If he does go, I'm still keeping an eye out and trying to stash him because they were almost at a 50-50 split last week before Madison left the game. Madison, I think, had like 1 or 2 more carries. That was it. And the Vikings have been kind of easing away from Madison for a bit now. Like, Cam Akers was starting to get some traction before he unfortunately tore his Achilles again. It kind of seems like he's a guy they're trying not to play, even though he has started to perform. So definitely throw him in your lineup because of the volume if he is going. But long-term outlook, I'm still sketched out.
Yeah, and I think that's just, they're looking for another guy. Like, even when Cam Akers was there, like, Matt Madison was still the dominant guy, and Chandler is a change of pace. It's not been that Madison gets 80% like we were hoping for.
Yep.
So, and with the offense, expect the first couple weeks not looking good, wasn't great. Now he's a little bit banged up. Another name to keep an eye on, not for this week, but just to pay attention to. It's a name you might have heard before. Miles Gaskin was signed to their practice squad.
Ooh.
We've seen teams just play the guy that they just signed off. It's so Madison can't go. Like, there is a world where Gaskin is the starter over Ty Chandler, even though Gaskin is on practice squad and Chandler's not. Like, we've seen teams do that. So just something to keep an eye on how that shakes out this week, and a former name. But let's jump into Monday night. Game of the week, potential game of the year.
It's a lot of pressure,
Super Bowl
especially
rematch.
after we had a really good game last week with the Chargers-Lions game, but Super Bowl rematch.
Super Bowl rematch. Both teams, schedule makers wanted both teams healthy and good to go for this one. So both teams coming off their bye. Andy Reid is elite off of his bye. Taylor is supposed to be there, but she is supposed to be bringing her parents, who are Eagles fans. So this is your Taylor Swift update from me, according to what I saw on X.
Yep.
George, why don't you talk us through the Eagles?
Well, I just want to throw out a PSA to Taylor Swift that if you are not in attendance wearing an Eagles jersey, you are officially removed from Eagles fandom. We are throwing the line here because you have grown up an Eagles fan. You were wearing an Eagles fan even when you performed in Philly earlier this summer. So sorry, not sorry, Travis Kelce. That is
George,
our update on our side.
I'm gonna call you out.
Okay.
Did you not take your now fiance to a Ravens Jets game and put on Ravens gear?
I know what you're talking about. I'm a Chargers fan. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm clipping that. You're screwed.
And I've ruined everything I built up, especially without the background to back me up now. I've got a little football helmet that's actually a tape dispenser if anyone thinks that's cool.
Kind of looks like it's missing the lightning bolt decal.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a lot to quite right blue, but we're working on it.
Eagles.
Eagles. This is not the highest over under of the week, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Chiefs defense has been quietly really good this year. With that being said, I'm not super worried about limiting my Eagles weapons. You're still playing DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts, the two wide receivers out there, Smith and AJ Brown. And then the other update, Dallas Goedert did not participate in practice on Thursday. I think it's 1 week too early for him to come back from his arm injury. But the fact that we're keeping an eye on it shows that, he's getting close. Cody literally texting when to clip that soundbite of me so he can go back and look at it. This guy. So I'm kind of limiting my expectations on my Eagles just because like I said, the Chiefs defense has been pretty solid, but it's not like you're going to go out there and overreact and sit any of them either. If you're looking for that number 2 running back, this is not really the game to look at it for because I'm not expecting a lot out of Kenny Gainwell. But now that I said that, he's going to go out there and score steal a touchdown from Hurts or Swift, and we're just going to be like, well, there we go.
You all still got Boston Scott?
We do still have Boston Scott, but we're not playing the Giants, so it's not going to happen this week.
Okay, I was just curious.
Just wait. We play the Giants 2 of the last 3 weeks of the season.
Fantasy
And
champion.
so not the fantasy championship. It's the fantasy semifinals, and then the week you should not be playing fantasy in week 18. But if you're playing DFS at that point, or you really need a guy, the fact that the Giants are really bad right now, and Boston Scott literally scores every one of his touchdowns against the Giants, that's something to look for in the future, but not now.
I can't believe I gave you the floor to talk about the Eagles game, and you're talking about Boston Scott coming up in the Giants in 4 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Are you that scared of the Chiefs?
No. I mean, you're scared's not the right word. There's a lot of respect for the Chiefs because you know that they are still number 1 team in the AFC, number 1 team in the NFC on the other side. It's not like it's going to be a cakewalk game for either of the teams, but I don't know if scared's the right word, but it's not a
I'm gonna ask you,
confidence that you're going to go out there and win straight out.
call your shot. Is this the only time these two teams play this year?
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Not saying which one's not going to make it, but
You're a Chargers
yes.
fan. It doesn't matter.
Damn Chargers fan, doesn't matter.
Uh,
As he types again, clip again at.
nah. Speaking of Eagles Chiefs, Christmas album for the Eagles drop soon. Not a sponsor, but they 100% could be. And Travis Kelce,
There's some singles already out if you want to go check it out.
and Travis Kelce's on one of them. He has a
Yes, he
part
is.
with Jason, so check those out. But on the Chiefs side, this offense is so hard to. So you're obviously playing Mahomes and Kelce, right? Like that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Pacheco,
Not in the matchup. I mean, and I'm going back to like when he talks about volume, like you might have to play him because of bye weeks, but I'm pretty sure the Eagles are fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs. If there's a week to not play Pacheco, this is the one. But he's probably better than going out there and trying to steal a running back two from somewhere if you have a couple of running backs on bye or injuries or whatever.
and then any other receivers you like for the Chiefs?
Again, I feel like I'm most confident on Rashee Rice. I think the Chiefs are gonna have points come from the wide receivers. I hate telling people to play them because you never know where it's gonna go. He's my most confident out of the group.
All right, and bet no Gray first touchdown.
Pretty much.
Don't actually do that. I'm
Man,
just...
is Kadarius Toney hurt right now, or is he still playing too? Like, you can bet him too. He just scores random touchdowns.
Kadarius Toney is a full participant on Thursday with the ankle injury coming off the bye.
It's funny I even knew he was on the injury report because there's very few times he's not, and it's very sad. But
yes, but he's come off a bye, full participant, could be good to go in this big matchup. Definitely the most excited I've been for a Monday night game that I wasn't attending this season. So we got through all the games. You want to do some Survivor picks?
Survivor picks. All right, Cody. We're picking one game like our life depends on it, and you have to pick the correct winner. And there's one super clear choice of a team that.
All right, you say yours. I'll say mine. We'll do it on the count of three.
All right, ready?
1, 2, 3. Commanders.
Commanders. Yeah.
All right.
Much.
Yeah, that's the Survivor pick this week.
And it's not because the Commanders are good. Obviously, it's nice to be able to get a team that's not so great out of the way and not have to, use them later. They're playing the Giants. The Giants are not good right now.
Yeah, and if you have to, if you're too afraid to do that and you haven't used the Cowboys yet against the Panthers, that's a solid option. Same thing with the Lions. If you haven't used them against the Bears, that's a pretty good one as well. So those are some other options for you if you haven't used them. But a lot of people haven't used the Commanders, and we really like them in this matchup this week. So that was the quickest segment we've ever done. We got one more.
Yes, it was.
Let's
get
into
it.
Cha-ching.
Man, we're spending Tyler's money. We have to call a little bit of an audible, I think, here too, because we never actually got Tyler's pick for his parlay here. We are going to be betting on receiving yards over under this week. So typically when we only have two of our picks, we'll both pick another one and do a little wheel of names. Maybe you and I can come to a consensus as we talk through this one. But in the meantime, I'll announce mine while you start to look. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle over 63.5 yards this week. So if we go on back up here, Dolphins facing the Raiders. Obviously, we expect them to, pretty much blow out in that game. We talked a lot about the running backs. I just think Jalen Waddle's kind of due for another big game here, and he can kind of do that in 2 catches against this Raiders defense. So I didn't hate the number. I was thinking about going with Hill, but I saw his number was at like 90.5, and that's a little bit rich when I think they might get up. So 63 seemed like a good one.
All right. So you're picking numbers that you like. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I know the Packers have been inconsistent this year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some decent numbers here that I think I can take. But they all feel juicy and they all feel extremely risky at the same time. All right, but let me read you the Packers receivers. I'm going to include running backs so I can get Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, 24.5.
Okay.
Christian Watson, 36.5. Jaden Reed, 35.5. Luke Musgrave, 28.5. Romeo Dobbs, 34.5.
These are all so low.
Dontavian Wicks, 21.5. Like there's a lot, and pretty much every one of those is minus 115. Aaron Jones minus 110, and then Luke Musgrave is minus 130. So I don't really know which one to pick. So I've been taking Dontavian Wicks actually as a part of the parlay because his number has been less than 20 the last couple of weeks, and he's always good for 2 or 3 catches on third down, and he's been getting it pretty consistently. But I'm going to pivot. I was going to pick him, but I picked him a lot in other leagues, and I'll probably pick him again this week. So I'm going to spend Tyler's money on somebody else. And I'm going to say Luke Musgrave over 28.5 against the Chargers. We're going to make that one a little bit a risque pick, but I'm going to do it anyways. So we got that one. And you want to talk after the last one because we didn't plan for wheel names. We don't have anyone from Snyder.
Yeah. So I have the idea of you got really excited when you talked about a potential shootout with the Cardinals and Texans. So we all like overs. We don't like rooting for people to not get yards. Why don't we look at some potential overs in Cardinals Texans?
Okay, I like that. Let me pull up the stats for you. Cardinals Texans receiving props. Alrighty. We have Dalton Schultz over 50.5. Marquise Brown over 57.5. Nico Collins over 56.5. Tank Dell over 58.5. And Trey McBride over 54.5. So all very close. So we're seeing a very similar thing to what we saw with Green Bay, except 20 yards more. Everyone else is in the 30s.
Yep,
These are all in the
pretty
50s.
much. I'm impressed that they have Trey McBride that high. I mean, I get Trey McBride's been fantastic, but I still like kind of cringe when I see a tight end not named Kelsey or Andrews or Kittle or something like that has over 50 yards, projected 54.5 in this case. But I said we were going to pick overs, not under. So I'm not going to pick on Trey McBride under. I think that if you're good with that.
So we're taking Trey McBride over?
No, I'm not going to pick Trey McBride because I think I would want to pick
I was
under.
like, bro,
No.
veto? And I'm not a big veto guy.
So I think
money, though, so
it is Tyler's money. We can just spend it however we want. I think I want to try to pick who I think I like best between Marquise Brown and Tank Dell, and that's a tough one for me.
So do you think he gets a bounce back week for Hollywood Brown, or Tank Dell continues the stretch that he's on?
I'm thinking that I like the idea of a Marquise Brown bounce back now that Kyler Murray's got his legs under him a little bit.
Alrighty. So Marquise Brown?
Marquise Brown over 57.5 sounds good.
Alrighty. Which means a $5 bet will win $32 if this hits on that 3-pick parlay. So we'll see how we do. We have not won one of these yet, and Tyler is getting pretty mad. That's probably why he didn't send us a pick. Maybe we forgot. But yeah, his money. George, why don't you recap the 3 picks that we just did?
All right, so we just had Marquise Brown over 57.5. You had Luke Musgrave over, was it 28? 28.5. There we go. Cool. And I had Jalen Waddle over 63.5. So going with the overs, we're going receiving yards this week, and I think I like our picks here. So we'll see if we can actually hit one.
Hopefully, but that will wrap up this episode of the Couch GMs podcast. As always, thanks for checking it out. Reminder, check us out on YouTube. And we have a lot of fun here. You can see George's cake dispenser. Schedule note for next week is TBD on the time of day, but next Wednesday we'll be dropping the monster episode, getting you ready for all the Thanksgiving festivities and recapping the Couch GMs World Cup. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kerth, and we will talk to you all next week.